Hello YouTubers, this is Cessna Ace back again with another mega LaserDisc ads video. If you had seen the earlier version of this video that I had up for a very short amount of time, this video has a lot more in it because I have received more LaserDisc since I did that. First up is a disc that I picked up yesterday and today out at the flea market, the only climate control facility out there. I know I've mentioned that a million times already. They had doubled their original size, then they tripled their original size, and now they have recently expanded again and are 4 times their original size. This disc was obviously made by 3M. It was made for the Department of Education. This is part of a language arts series. This particular course deals with German, and this is part 1 of that course. Now, before the program starts, I have watched this. There are a number of sponsored by endowments and so forth. And then there is a credit that reads, alternate German language track, courtesy of. Well, there must be an English language track and a German language track. It starts off with an anchor who is reading in English or speaking in English. By the way, I kept both channels up and open at all times. Then he switched to speaking German. And then he switched back to speaking English, and then he switched back to speaking German, and then he went back to speaking English, and then he tossed to a package. All the packages they used, the edited stories, came from stations all over Europe. When the package came up, one track was in German, and the other track was in German. But they were 2 different German tracks. One read by a man, one read by a woman, and they weren't saying the same thing. This has a copyright date on it of 1987. And when I showed a picture of it in the forums of the LaserDisc database and mentioned that it was a single-sided disc, I was informed that this sort of thing typically was released as a double-sided disc. So this is quite unusual. Of all of the single-sided discs that I have, or discs or releases with odd number of sides, most of them, the so-called dead side looks like this, the same as the playable side. There'd be 5 minutes of a generic message stating program on other side of disk, or there'd be an upside down turtle, please flip me over, that sort of thing. I have one other disk by 3M that is like this one, and that was, or that is, Roger Ramjet Volume 2, which was released by Image Entertainment under license from Rhino Home Video. Instead of this on the dead side, you had this, which is a white piece of plastic. Now, this obviously belonged to FCCJ South, that is Florida Community College Jacksonville South Campus. This was VLD 68 in their library. It's hard to tell how many were made of things like this. But I was contacted by somebody in the forums, and they mentioned that they had a lot of such releases. However, they weren't, for the most part, educational. They were other things, like music video compilations and so forth, and a lot of them he had duplicate copies of, and the duplicate copies were factory sealed, and was I interested? And I said, So that will be coming sometime down the road. I was also contacted recently by the guy who sold me my VHD player. He lives in Japan, and he came across a VHD release that he thought I would be interested in. I was most certainly interested in it. He mentioned it was rather rare, which I believe, because every time I have gone to Rico Banchow and looked for it, it's either A, not been there, or B, there, but at a very high price, $50 to $60 usually, and typically gone within 12 to 24 hours. He is selling it to me for considerably less, and it's in real nice condition, so that will be coming. Okay, this is a Japanese release of an American made-for-TV movie called 1201. Now, as is the case of live-action movies released on LaserDisc in Japan, this retains the original language track, which is English. And it has Japanese in-picture subtitles. If I didn't already say, I believe this film had a theatrical release in Japan, if I remember correctly. Nice watermarked image there. If you pull back far enough, you can't really tell there's text there. This was released by Pioneer LDC, release PILF-1754, originally retailed for 4,700 yen, has digital audio and analog audio, encoded with CX noise reduction, and both tracks are in stereo. Licensed by Gaga. So anyway, 4,700 yen, that was about $46 to $48, depending on the exchange rate at the time. This most probably had a OB strip and insert originally, but it no longer does. But it's in real nice condition and it plays beautifully. Okay, those of you who remember my old series, I had a series where I was going through and systematically showing all of my LaserDiscs. I was doing the same thing with DVDs, and I got up to volume 40 something and then stopped, and I wound up taking all those down. I'm planning on redoing that series at some point. But in any event, if you remember that series, you may get a feeling of deja vu when you see this, because I already have a copy of this. It's just that this one is sealed. Got it from Music and More in the Netherlands. This movie, I believe, was released on LaserDisc 3 times, all 3 times in the US, for some strange reason. This is the expanded director's cut, released by Columbia TriStar. Now, the other release that I own is one that was published by Pioneer Special Editions. Pioneer was the one that did the restoration, expanding the highly butchered theatrical version to the director's version with the help of and supervision by the original director, Peter Hunt. A lot of time went into that project. Some of what they added was only 1 frame long, plus which, on one of the deleted scenes, the original footage didn't exist for a part of a musical number. But another camera that was shooting another part of the set picked it up. They were recording audio live apparently, and so they used that. They remixed it, boosted it up, and that's what they used for the Pioneer Special Edition, which has a stated running time of 180 minutes. This has a stated running time of 176 minutes, even though they both supposedly use the same video transfer. Now, they obviously didn't use the same master discs or stamper discs because, first of all, the side breaks are in different places. Now this says it has a running time of 176 minutes. I haven't timed it, but the Pioneer Special Editions has a stated running time of 180 minutes. I have timed it, and it does run 180 minutes. Now, the Pioneer version, which was made by Pioneer USA, looks a lot sharper than this does, which was made by Sony's US plant, DADC USA. Also, the Pioneer Special Editions release has much clearer audio. The stereo has much greater dynamic range, plus which, for some strange, odd reason, all the way through the opening credits, not anywhere else in the movie, just the opening credits of the Columbia TriStar release, there is a phenomenon called gate float, which when companies first switched to telecines that didn't have sprockets because they didn't want to damage the sprocket holes of their precious negatives, they went to a sprocketless system. Problem is, sometimes if the telecine they were using was not up to par, you would sometimes get gate float, which is, imagine the picture, and it's doing this. It only does it during the opening credits. Strangely, even though Pioneer used the same video transfer, their opening credit sequence, the gate flow isn't nearly as bad, which makes me think they were compensating for it on the fly. Stamper discs rarely left a facility that made it, so in addition to there being different side change points, that's another reason why I think they use different stamper discs, and I think that is the main explanation as to the difference in the look and sound of the two releases. Okay, this film, if I remember correctly, was a Japanese-French co-production. This is the Japanese version of this film. It has the kind of obi strip I like, which is it doesn't just hang over one side. It's on there, looped all the way around, so you can move it anywhere you want, or you could slide it all the way off if you want to. This was released by Pony Video, release 698F0173. As to the manufacturer, the jacket lies, which is often the case with Japanese releases. I don't know why. But frequently, the publisher would take the credit for making the disc with Japanese releases, even though they had nothing to do with making the disc. In this case, it says, made by Pony Incorporated, Japan. As far as I know, Pony never made LaserDisc. In fact, if I remember correctly, this disc was made by Pioneer. Nice yellow labels. Okay. bit marks for side 1, which is the side labeled side 2. Well, it may not be, I don't know, but the bit marks are PN-110-A-7. That might be a Pioneer number. The batch number is A703139. That's just for that side. The other side has its own set of marks. By the way, I have found that there was another LaserDisc manufacturing facility I had no idea existed. But one of the other members at the LaserDisc database discovered that this facility existed. They mainly made LaserDiscs for the Taiwanese and Hong Kong markets. The name of the company is Princo. And I had started a thread there because I was finding releases in the database that had a manufacturer determined but no mint marks, and it would say made by Pioneer Japan. And I would start to enter in the mint marks for side 1, and it would say made by Princo on the side. Then I would enter in the batch number, and it would say or Pioneer Japan. And then I would enter in the marks for the other side, and even with the batch marks, that would say made by Princo or Pioneer Japan. I have run across both. He stated to me that he has worked with Julian to tweak the software they use there to determine the manufacturer based on the mint marks. The software they use is called Mint-O-Matic, and they've made several tweaks of it since Princo was discovered. I went to their website, and according to Princo, they started making LaserDiscs in '92, although don't know when they stopped. Okay, this is one that came in yesterday. American Graffiti. Released by Kick Video under license from Universal. This is release 082-876-1, and it is pan and scan, and somebody at the LaserDisc database told me that that was quite common in the Netherlands for at least widescreen movies, pan and scan. Made in UK by PDO. Philips DuPont Optical. Sparse code on the audio is AAD. One thing I like about the Netherlands releases is they give you the sparse code for the audio, assuming that the release has digital audio tracks. Now, I picked this up at yesterday and today. This is part of the Criterion collection. I paid more than I typically pay yesterday and today. I typically pay around $3, but this one typically sells for around $50 on eBay and other sites like that. So I was willing to pay the $10 to $15 that he was asking for it. Now, there are several things about Criterion Collection releases that I like. One is they tell you the printing. This is the first printing, 1992, manufactured by 3M, made in USA. Analog tracks, Japanese soundtrack, digital tracks, English soundtrack. 3 discs, 124 minutes, entirely in CAV. Let's say, hey, gatefold jacket. Wrong. Trifold jacket. Can't really see what I'm doing now. This has encoding for Dolby Surround Stereo. Another thing I like about them is they assign a catalog reference number to every release, this being CC1294L, but they also number all of their releases so you know if you have every film that they've released or not. This is number 151. Earliest I think I have is number 3. Sometimes though you'll run across, say, 3B, whereas number 3 will be entirely in CAV and will have bonus features and so forth, which is a practice started by Criterion. So if you enjoy bonus features like running commentary tracks and behind the scenes documentaries and the film in its correct aspect ratio and so forth, you have Voyager Company and Janus Films thank for their Criterion collection for that. Although I've talked to some people who don't like the Criterion collection because the prices were very high. Typically, like I said, this still goes for $50 or thereabouts, but I pay $10 to $15. And no, I'm not rubbing it in. Okay, I already have this release on LaserDisc, but this one is still sealed. Picked this up at yesterday and today. I believe this one, like most of Disney's animated films, I believe this one was released on LaserDisc more than once. Originally sold for $29.99. Right under the sticker where it says $9.99, it looks like it says 20% off, or it could have been 25% off. Marked down to $9.99. Yesterday and today had it marked at $8. If I remember correctly, he sold it to me for either $5 or $6. He always gives me a discount because I'm his biggest LaserDisc customer. Although I don't go around bragging about it in the store when there are other people going through the LaserDisc. But they're buying 1 or 2 at a time, and I'm buying 30 at a time, so there's that. This didn't come yesterday, but it came recently. This is a UK release. AWOL. Absent Without Leave. Although I believe it's known simply as AWOL in many countries. Distributed by Pioneer from Guild Home Video. This is release PLFEB 30241. To watch it, you have to be at least 18 years of age. I know that screenshot looks like, hey, this is in widescreen, but it's not. It's pan scan. Has digital audio tracks only. They weren't technically capable of putting both digital and analog on the same disc. With PAL, they could with NTSC, and in fact they did in the US. Once they introduced digital, they kept offering analog on all of their releases to maintain backwards compatibility. However, they also discovered that there were other things they could use those analog tracks for. Alternate language tracks, running commentary tracks, AC3 digital information could be put there, so forth and so on. This one came yesterday, if I remember correctly. Batteries not included. This is a title that I recently added to the LaserDisc database, but on VHD. Distributed by, or published by Kick Video under license from Universal. Okay, this is Pan and Scan. Of course, 9 chapters encoded with Dolby Surround. Catalog reference number 1990031 space NL. Made in UK by PDO. Sparse code is ADD. I don't really know what that AL means, unless it's some kind of ratings system that I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with the American rating system, obviously, and the British and the Hong Kong, but I'm not familiar with the rating systems they use in other countries. Now, in previous videos I showed ads to that I picked up in this series, volumes 1, 2, 3, and 6, because that's all I could find. Well, now here is the best of Mission Impossible Volume 4. The Mercenaries and the Exchange. From Paramount. Just happened to remember that each jacket had a trivia question. A TV and film star long before Mission Impossible, Peter Graves co-starred with William Holden in what 1983 World War II classic? See left side of package for the answer. Left side of the package. Stalag 17. Best of Mission Impossible Volume 5. Mind of Stefan Miklos and Live Bait. Trivia question. Who were the only 2 characters to appear in all 7 seasons of Mission Impossible's network TV run? Hold package to the mirror to read the answer. It's printed right underneath. Sometimes I can flip my brain around. Sounds painful, I know, to read something that is a mirror image, but I can't make that out. Maybe you can. I can make out answer. Kind of wish they had done that with all series. Paramount could have done it with Star Trek, which they released the entire series on LaserDisc, and Star Trek The Next Generation, they released the entire series. The animated series, they released the entire series. Deep Space Nine, they released part of that series. In Japan, they released all of those, plus the entire run of Deep Space Nine and the first 60 or so episodes of Star Trek Voyager. I had already picked up this film on VCD from Yes Asia because it features in the cast one of my favorite Hong Kong actresses. No, not Michelle Yeoh, although she is one. Moon Lee. The film is called Bury Me High. For some strange reason, my kids have taken to pulling out my VCDs and watching them, even though most of them have Cantonese on one channel and Mandarin on the other. This is from Ocean Shores Video Limited. And I think, well, you've got the same thing there. Digital sound, Mandarin, analog sound, Cantonese. But it also offers subtitles, both in Chinese and English. Now this film has some pretty amazing stunt work in it. Some great sequences. So if you haven't seen Bury Me High, I recommend it. Now, this was released by Ocean Shores Video Limited, and it is released OL-186. Now, if there is a genre that gave anime a run for its money on LaserDisc, it was okay, now it got stuck. It doesn't want to come out. Porn. The Butt Detective. This is in immaculate condition. Plays beautifully too. I had to do some research on this one because originally the entry at the LaserDisc database had it running at 65 minutes. Everything I found on it online said 65 minutes. However, on the back it says side 1 56 minutes 53 seconds, side 2 58 minutes 4 seconds. Published by LaserDisc Entertainment under license from VCA Pictures at Platinum Plus. This is release Z0533, which is a typical LaserDisc Entertainment catalog reference number. They were a label owned by Image Entertainment. Other porn labels were owned by them, including, I believe, Apex, but I know Creative Image. Anyway, this video is long enough because I don't want it to take 18 hours to upload. So until next time, stay awesome.